Cool news here. Just wanting to give you guys an alert. This is a major alert for people in Florida, living in Florida. If you have any loved ones or friends, make sure you give them this video, pass it on. I'm going to have a detailed information that's going to come in just a second here about what's to come, possible potential, what to expect, and how intense this hurricane could be as it impacts the coast of Florida, all up into South Carolina, Georgia. This picture here was, I made a video about it because it's very eerie. This is the eye of the storm as it impacted Haiti. Looks like a skull. A meteorologist put this out on one of the news stations just recently. And I took the picture because I thought it just really could be a foreboding, kind of, message, just to get everybody's attention, just to be prepared for this. This could be a deadly storm. They're saying that it could pick up in intensity going back up to a Cat 5. It's actually kind of slowed down just a little because it impacted Haiti, but it did go around. So when you look at the updated information, you'll see what I'm talking about, that it is definitely still has a lot of power, and the warmer waters are going to intensify the category back up to a 5, it looks like. So here's the information. Pay close attention. Pass this on to your loved ones. This is a current news update on the situation with Hurricane Matthew.
Looking like we got a rough 2 days ahead of us, for sure. All right, let's take a look at current satellite right now. Current satellite will show that this is a good graphic right here. This kind of gives you the last 48 hours of the center of Hurricane Matthew. You'll see it go over the western tip of Haiti here. This is early this morning, right before sunrise, and then it just opened up the eye wall just a little bit, and oh, that's it, the last little graphic. So right now it's currently trying to exit Cuba, and the eye wall might have opened up just a little bit. I was reading some discussion, and this could actually help it and enable the system to open up a little bit more. So we'll have to see that. That's something kind of interesting. Let's look at some radar imagery right now. Right here's a good one. We'll do this little guy right here. Leave it running for a minute. You can see the eye wall is probably, ah man, it's just getting ready to go off the eastern tip of Cuba right now. And every sign from here on out looks like it's going to strengthen. Very low shear environment and extremely warm waters ahead of it. So the Bahamas are definitely looking at a possible major hurricane through tomorrow. And one thing to note here, looking at the satellite loop, see is how our center did go across land, but however, most of the convection from the south and the east side has been able to stay over the warm waters of the Caribbean and the Gulf here now. So if anything is bad for our system, is meaning bad, meaning as a strong system, it probably crossed over the best part of Cuba and avoiding any of the tall mountains. So bad sign for the Bahamas, because Matthew's going to exit as still a pretty strong system, and if it would have went to the west 30-40 miles, it would have crossed over a lot more terrain and been disrupted for the short term. But it definitely picked the path of least resistance. If you were to pick the perfect path, it definitely missed the most amount of land possible. So Matthew is definitely not playing very nicely tonight, that's for sure. So let's take a look at the current NHC map. Here is our latest 9, 11 o'clock advisory. Just came out, and it's showing a major hurricane all the way up through the Bahamas, all the way to the coastal sections of Florida into Georgia. And the significant thing to take out of this graphic is we have another shift to the west, and just looking how close our center is, even off the shore of Jacksonville. We have tons of people in Jacksonville that tune into my page, and you're looking at possible 8 p.m. Friday, major Hurricane Matthew just off the coast. These watches will turn into hurricane warnings if this track verifies by the morning. They only issue hurricane warnings 36 hours ahead of expected landfall. So don't get your guard, caught off here. If this track stays, we'll have hurricane warnings all the way up through Georgia and South Carolina sometime tomorrow. So that's why we have hurricane warnings currently right now inland, and Okeechobee is mainly because of the timing. So don't believe it just because you see a hurricane watch from Melbourne and Daytona Beach north. It's more of a timing thing, and as we get closer to the time frame, they'll probably extend warnings up in the morning where it's pink, and then they'll probably extend the watches up into Georgia tomorrow. So you still have major impacts coming above the hurricane warnings. It's just not noted on this graphic, so don't let your guard down. So all right, so we got a little bit track to the west, and expected major hurricane. Now, before we went live, they did not have the discussion up, and they do now. So let's read this. I was trying to read this before we went live so I could be a little bit more educated. But we're going to read it real quick. I'm going to scan. It's letting you know it's moving slightly west now due north, so it is not moving east anymore, and it's expected to make the turn to north-northwest during the next 12 hours, followed by the northwest motion, 24 to 48 hours. Talks about the broad trough weakening and lifting out. That's kind of something we were talking about earlier. It looked like that approaching front might not be as strong as it originally was thought. Let's see. Another ridge is coming, lifts northward. Matthew is expected to turn northward and northwestward. So they're still expecting a pull to the northeast, which is on track. No big changes. Vertical shear is supposed to weaken. And it says steadily increasing vertical wind shear is expected to gradually weaken. Okay, so not a lot of talk about the weakening as we had before. We have winds parallel to the coastline. You can read all this stuff here. It's on the NHC site. I'm just doing it for my own benefit right now. It will likely take, and here's a good note, it will likely take another day or so for potential impacts to the United States to clarify. And that's something we've been saying also, that it's still a little bit too far away to know exactly who is going to be impacted and who's not. And the NHC is still not confident on the exact track by that statement right there. So it's tropical storm or hurricane conditions could affect Florida north of the current watch, which we just said, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. We've been showing you guys that later this week and this weekend, even if the center remains offshore. It's too soon to specify direct impact. So a little bit of, you can see the uncertainty there. Still a track off the coast is possible. But with a shift to the west, it makes you believe that, it's becoming more and more likely we're going to see impacts along, in the short term at least, the Florida East Coast. The expected intensity values, we're looking at 130 miles all the way up to 2 days. Yeah, it's still a major hurricane, extremely strong. I expect this to increase just based on the fact of the conditions ahead. So if anything, we're going to be right around 130 miles an hour, major hurricane. But I would not be surprised if this doesn't get bumped back up again because of the extremely warm ocean water, low shear, MJO, pulse that we're in right now. Pretty much everything it needs to strengthen. So we could be looking at a little bit stronger system, incredibly. So big news, folks. Man, I'll tell you what, I soaking it all in. Definitely. There's our current radar out of Cuba, showing our eye wall just passing northward of the tip of the island. You can see the eye opening still. So the eastern part of Cuba getting hammered right now, no doubt about it. There's a really good radar presentation of Matthew, and it's half of the eye is over water. So it won't be long before it'll be able to start strengthening again. Here's our current hurricane hunters. And the hurricane hunters staying over water. Again, they're not, must be no fly zones. Haiti showed a similar thing earlier this morning. Cuba, obviously not allowed to fly over, or they're just choosing not to. But they're out there right now. The plane is anxiously waiting for the eye to emerge so they can start tracking true center. These are your center fixes and pressure readings, and we'll start to see more than likely a northwestern turn through tomorrow. So all that is pretty cut and dry. The timing, a lot of questions on timing. Let's really take a good in-depth look at this. Still looking at impacts into Florida beginning. Actually, it slowed down a little bit. See, now this is interesting because we were looking at earlier Thursday. Now the official forward track has slowed down a little bit. So the thinking now is possibly Thursday, 8 o'clock, sitting off the coast. Not much, just a little bit, but you can tell just by the center points right here, the NHC timing has slowed down just a tick. So Friday and Thursday are the big days in Florida. Thursday, 8 p.m., Friday, 8 p.m. So Saturday, 8 p.m. up here. We're focusing on Florida right now because it's a short term, but look at that cone open up. We're still looking at some huge impact possibilities from Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, just by when this turn comes. It is expected to start weakening with that approaching front. And, Category 2, I believe we were looking at right up here in South Carolina, North Carolina. That's all speculative. The intensity forecast on this system has been not very good. So I would not focus too much on intensity at this point because right now, through these Bahamas, we're looking at incredible heat energy. All this red is just the best possible conditions for hurricanes, and it's going to be soaking up all this warm water and the Gulf Stream. The only positive on any potential weakening is that the shelf waters close to land from northern Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina are cooler, so they could prevent any rapid intensification. So let's go back to some comments here, and we'll slow it down a little bit. I'm still kind of soaking it all in. Again, I put a rant on the other day. I was really upset reading a lot of Florida meteorologists saying this was going out to sea a few days ago and to not worry. I hate saying never say never with anything, and it's going to bite many forecasters that were too quick to jump on one or two models. We had so many models still showing this Florida impact. In fact, personally, I mentioned before, I wanted a bigger cone in Florida just because of the fact we had such a wide spread in the ensemble runs that here we are now, Just yesterday we were talking about why the cone wasn't in Florida. It was right off the coast. But they can't stop it now. I mean, it's reality now. the system it's going to affect one way or another. Even if it stays off the coast, we're still going to have impacts. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Let's look at we'll do a few individual model runs, and then I'll kind of get focusing on some of the comments. And I'm extremely tired, so I do apologize for my low tone, but I think I got up this morning at 4 o'clock. It was a long day. But anyway, all right. So here's your latest Euro. This was 12Z. This is around 2 p.m. At 2 a.m., we're going to have a new run in about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So really, we shouldn't, unless nobody's seen it. But your latest Euro, exactly right where the NHC is pinpointing hurricane warnings. So your Euro this afternoon shows landfall and skirting the Florida coast all the way through Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and exiting on out. And it does this little funky curl that we've talked about a couple times back through the state of Florida. And it's all in response to high pressure that possibly is building. Now, since this run doesn't, only runs every 12 hours, I'm really, we're curious to see what its thinking is overnight. But it's predicting that the trough that was expected to come down isn't that strong. High pressure builds in and basically kicks the Euro Matthew run here back down the coast and spins it back across Florida. So definitely believable because there's been several GFS ensembles showing the same thing. All right, so we're going to go real quick to your last GFS run that was just done. Now we're going to have a new one starting in about 30 minutes. But your latest GFS around 6 o'clock move a little bit closer to the coast, thus, prompting the hurricane warnings again. And the latest GFS curves it right around South Carolina, North Carolina, and it kind of kicks it out to sea now, and keeps it off from the northeast that it was showing earlier. So that's a good thing. Now your latest 12Z models or 00Z models that came out not too long ago, same pattern. We got that bend to the west coming tomorrow, northwest, and either hugging the coast. And we talked about this earlier. The UK Met does the little twist, kind of like the European model, and majority of them keep it out to sea after North Carolina. So there is a little bit something coming here with a high pressure area building in that could be affecting our runs. I mean, here's our 18Z GFS runs. These are all the ensemble members of the GFS, all the different runs of the GFS, and look at these. There's quite a few that obviously something's pushing our system. Big high pressure area up here, and some of the models do a little loop. So that's a little, there's something to watch, and that could help minimize the impacts for North Carolina a little bit, but it doesn't slow down our impacts for Georgia, South Carolina. So one thing it could do is just make a massive hook to the Atlantic and maybe spare a little bit more of the North Carolina coast. So that's just one thinking right now. But the NHC track now, they're cone, they're not buying into that yet. So you have to, you always have to side with the NHC this close to a landfall. They do open up the 5-day a little bit. So anywhere in here, the center can pass through. But in the short term, in the 3-day cone, we're looking at definite impacts in Florida coming, and possibly Georgia, South Carolina. So yeah, it's for real, folks. Man, I just can't believe we're looking at a major hurricane sitting off the coast of Florida this close, this very close, and a tiny little itty bitty shift will be devastating, no doubt about it. So, all right, so I'm gonna read some comments here, guys. My eyes, I can barely see. But yep, let's talk about Charlie. Charlie kind of started a lot of us into this hurricane frenzy if you live in Florida. But Charlie was expected to come into Tampa, and the cone did show Port Charlotte. However, everybody was focused on the center line of the cone, just like we kind of are right now, and they forget that it can pass on either side of the cone. And what happened, at the last minute, the frontal boundary that was coming in was a little bit stronger than expected, and it forced Charlie to make a jog to the right, to the east a little bit. And that was, major headlines because at the time everybody was focused on the center line, even though the cone was still technically covering, southern Florida. So, if you're in that cone, like I did a little rant earlier. If you're in that cone, you are at, potential for a system. So do not focus on the center line. All right, here's our 11 p.m. I just wanted to make sure our 11 p.m. track was correct. So here's our NHC track. Again, it inched a little bit closer to Titusville. That looks like it'll be our closest point per this track. That is 14 miles offshore. And, expected winds are about 60 miles from center, maybe more. So here there's 60 exactly. So if our center passes right here, we could possibly see hurricane force winds, this far inland. Same thing that goes, farther north we go. If the hurricane passes that far off the coast, we could see hurricane force winds almost nearing Ocala. And again, if we see a track shift a little bit more to the west again, then more areas are going to be impacted by possible hurricane strength winds. And there's our green is our tropical storm force wind charts, and yes, they did inch even more to the west, almost touching upper Tampa Bay now. If you were to draw a line from the green, connect the dots, this is our potential tropical storm force winds. Whoops, that's not a good one. Let's start over. And let's see right here. About right there. It's a bad line, but gives you an idea. It's inching closer to Tampa Bay. So there you have it, folks. It's going to curve, and it's going to what it does up here, South Carolina, North Carolina is still a big question. Is there a high pressure building that affects the steering and blocks it? And let's see if we can, I'll show a good 500 millibar graphic showing what we're talking about. But we could see high pressure starting to build in just a little bit, and limit. Well, actually, our 12-0 or 0-0-0 run now is just starting. But we'll go to the latest GFS 18Z. Look at 500 millibars. It's our mid-level atmosphere. Look at that high pressure area is setting in. And we'll go forward in time. Here's 500 millibars. There's our system getting, skirting the coast of Florida. Huge high pressure area now predicted in the mid-levels. Now the GFS shows that trough coming down and opening it up. If you go to the Euro, it expects the trough to be weak, and the high pressure basically blocks our system from going north. So we got a little bit of different thinking there. In our Navy model, let's see if it had a trend. This has been our big outlier. The Navy model has had our system coming up through South Florida here, and basically getting pushed across the state and finally turning. So it is definitely our most west trended model by far. This is your latest, and it did that pretty much in the 12Z model run too. So it's not like it's the first run on this. So very interesting. So that's what we got. Let's see what kind of comments we got. We got still, I think, a bunch of questions as far as direct impacts. But again, man, a major hurricane. I mean, this is, Charlie wasn't even a major hurricane until the last second. I mean, we're talking a major hurricane to be predicted all the way up through Jacksonville, possibly. So just a slight shift to the west, and it's just going to be worst case scenario for the east coast of Florida, I'm afraid. And then, of course, again, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, we're going to be talking about them. But in the short term, we have to look at who's up first. And unfortunately for the Bahamas, we're looking at considerably everyone. I mean, man, it's just incredible. Let's zoom. I was going to zoom in on our Bahama map and see exactly how close it is to Freeport. And see, I mean, we're talking a potential right over Freeport, Bahamas, right here, literally. And the east side's always the worst side. So, I mean, this would be devastating for Freeport. Nassau, same boat. I mean, look how close our system's going to be to Nassau. So Bahamas are they're just a day away here from I mean, you got your red circle there. That's your hurricane force winds. Totally encompasses the whole island. Big news. So let's hope they escape with minimal damage. So, all right, guys. Well, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I stayed up way past my bedtime to show you guys the 5 or the 11 o'clock. I'm getting delirious now. So anyway, definitely in the morning I'll be on live, Chipper, and we'll chat for a long time in the morning. Probably, I would say around probably 8:30 ish. I'll do an update around 6 probably once with the NHC 5 o'clock update. The next major NHC update comes out at 5 o'clock, and that'll have a new track change if there is going to be one. The GFS model should be done around noon or midnight, and your Euro run will be done around 2 in the morning. And then at 5 in the morning, we'll have a new NHC track. So I would expect our hurricane warnings to be extended northward and watches to be extended upwards into Georgia by morning. So please be alert and make sure you check my site out. I do have the Weather Channel graphic, which is great this time of year. It's down a little bit. I think I'm going to move it up top, but this shows you inland counties and how far the watches and warnings extend. Not just your coastal warnings and advisories. This will actually show our folks that are living inland current situations. So as you can tell, we have hurricane warnings now almost to the central of the state, and tropical storm warnings extending all the way to the west coast now. So that's interesting. And this will be updated. They do update these 2 o'clock in the morning. If there's any updates to the watches and warnings, they will update those at 2 o'clock in the morning. So you got a lot to stay tuned to, folks. And again, like I mentioned before, if you are in this cone, all we can do now is go off the cone, because the spaghetti models now are all so within a few miles of each other that there's just no way to know if you could predict the exact path. And we have a major hurricane. It's not like we're talking about a Cat 1 hurricane that's, minimal winds. If it was off the coast of Miami here, Cat 1, you'd probably have nothing in Miami. But this is a massive 600-mile wide system with pretty far-reaching winds. So be a long day tomorrow. So we'll be online all day tomorrow with all the possibilities, as we expect this to start impacting Florida as early as Thursday afternoon. So there you go. All right. Have a good night. Thanks.
Packing winds of 145 miles an hour, Matthew's eyes slice through the southwestern edge of Haiti, bringing massive storm surge, relentless rain, and howling winds. The death toll from the Category 4 hurricane now up to at least 8, including 4 killed in the Dominican Republic. Jamaica also battered by flash floods, and now eastern Cuba is bracing for impact. Hardest hit Haiti's rural southern peninsula, where there are early reports of devastation in a region where many people live in shacks of wood. But villages and communications are cut off after a key bridge washed away. Around Port-au-Prince, raging rivers and the threat of mudslides. Haitian authorities had tried to evacuate people from the most vulnerable areas, but many refused to leave. Now, as it churns north, Matthew is roughly the size of Arizona. It's been a Category 4 hurricane for 3 days. Only 20 storms on record have lasted that long. The last one that strong to make landfall in Haiti was Cleo in 1964. Tonight, the most impoverished country in the hemisphere is reeling from yet another natural disaster. I've never seen this much rain, this woman told us, and Matthew's path is far from over. The Haitian government is now asking the U.S. military for help in the relief effort. The damage is still being assessed in the southwestern part of the country. The full toll of Hurricane Matthew not yet known. Lester?
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you. Let's get right to Dylan Dreyer tracking it for us. What's it looking like, Dylan?
Well, Lester, this storm has been maintaining its intensity for so long now. It still has winds up to 140 miles per hour, making it that Category 4 hurricane. It is looking like it will remain as a Category 4 as it takes more than a day and a half to make its way through the Bahamas on Wednesday and then finally exiting by Thursday with 130 mile per hour winds, up to 15 inches of rain and a 10 to 15 foot storm surge. After that, it looks like it's going to parallel the coast of Florida as a major Category 3 hurricane, producing up to 10 inches of rain. And then it's forecast to make landfall at some point on Saturday in North Carolina. Also about 7 to 10 inches of rain with the wind and the storm surge an issue. And then as it makes its way into the northeast, it should stay offshore, but we're still looking at heavy rain there as well. So all the models are coming into agreement. The southeast needs to prepare now.
All right, Dylan Dreyer, thank you.